Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wabihi nasta'in wala hawla wala quwwata illa billahil aliyil azim. Saya Azmi daripada LHI Consulting. Sedikit pengisian kita dari jarak jauh sempena PKP ini, sempena COVID-19. Hari ini 27 hari bulan Mac 2020. InsyaAllah sebulan lagi Ramadan akan menjelang. Kita doa sungguh-sungguh, kita doa daripada hati, kita merayu, kita merintih supaya kita tak terlepas fadilat Ramadan tahun ini, disebabkan oleh makhluk Allah juga yang datang atas urusan Allah, iaitu COVID-19. Saya nak isi sedikit masa ini dengan pengisian dan juga tips bagaimana untuk berfikiran secara kritikal dan analytical. Ini sebahagian daripada teknik pemikiran yang produktif yang boleh membawa kita ke depan dalam menangani masalah, dalam kita membentuk reka cipta yang baru, dalam kita merealisasikan idea-idea kreatif dalam bentuk yang realiti dan praktikal yang akan diamalkan. Jadi tips yang pertama, saya nak beritahu ke arah berfikiran kreatif dan ke arah berfikiran kritikal dan analytical ialah dengan menggunakan kaedah berfikiran menjawab soalan ataupun menjawab rumusan atau memberikan keputusan dengan menggunakan teknik ada 3 benda. Ada 3 perkara. There are 3 things. Ingat aja, jika anda berada dalam situasi hendak buat rumusan, jika anda berada dalam situasi nak membuatkan ringkasan satu benda yang kompleks dan rumit dan complicated, rumuskan dengan menggunakan teknik ada 3 perkara. Contoh, kenapa anda pilih untuk membeli rumah yang anda tinggal sekarang ini? Ada banyak lagi kawasan perumahan tempat lain. Tapi kenapa anda pilih rumah ini yang anda duduk? Jawapannya, saya pilih kenapa saya tinggal di sini disebabkan oleh 3 perkara. Pertama, mungkin disebabkan oleh accessibility dari segi trafik. Kedua, dari segi infrastruktur ataupun prasarana yang ada di sekeliling kawasan perumahan ini. Dan yang ketiga, dari segi affordability, kemampuan milik saya untuk tinggal di rumah ini. Jadi itulah ada 3 perkara kenapa saya pilih pertama ini. Contoh kedua, ada banyak kereta dekat luar itu. Kenapa anda pilih kereta ini? Kenapa tak pilih kereta lain? Dan anda boleh jawab dengan mudah saja. Saya pilih sebab 3 perkara. Pertama, sebab maintenance murah. Kedua, mungkin sebab faktor fuel consumption. Dan yang ketiga, mungkin disebabkan oleh keselesaan untuk keluarga. Jadi, kita rumuskan benda yang rumit dan complicated itu dengan 3 perkara. Yang lain, ada ramai wanita di luar itu. Kenapa anda pilih wanita itu sebagai suri di hati anda sebagai seorang isteri? Saya pilih dia sebagai suri kehidupan saya sebab 3 perkara. Pertama, bla 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 bla. Kedua, bla 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 bla. Dan ketiga, bla 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 bla. Gunakan tiga perkara ini yang boleh membantu dan boleh membantu pemikiran kita untuk memberi jawapan yang lebih tersusun. Ibarat buat kek ada acuan. Bayangkan kalau buat kek tiada acuan. Begitu jugalah jawapan kita, rumusan kita, pemikiran kita tidak akan distrukturkan bila kita tak letak 3 perkara. Jadi ingat, ini tips yang pertama bagaimana berfikiran secara kritikal dan analytical. Bila kita nak buat rumusan, bila kita dapat satu benda yang rumit, satu benda yang complicated, satu benda yang kompleks, Kita rumuskan dengan 3 perkara. Bila kita buat persembahan, business presentation dan bila ditanyakan soalan, kita mulakan jawapan kita dengan berkata, there are 3 things. Bila kita buat executive summary, kita buat report yang besar, ada banyak data yang kita nak rumuskan dan di hujungnya kita buat executive summary dan kita kata ada, in conclusion from this analysis, we can conclude 3 areas. Cukup. So ingat 3 benda. So hari ini, 28 hari bulan Mac 2020, kita masih lagi dalam PKP. Jadi apa yang kita nak buat dalam PKP ini? Sementara nak tunggu 14 hari bulan April nanti. Apa kita nak buat? Ada 3 perkara. Pertama, kedua, dan ketiga. Sekian, semoga ada manfaatnya untuk kita pada hari ini. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
How are you?
Fine, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. How are you, sister?
I'm good, Alhamdulillah.
You look great. Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak. It's my first fast today. And you know, I'm so grateful that I'm semi-human.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Sister Saeeda, how are you?
Walaikum salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I'm very good. Thank you, yourself.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. I'm doing fine here, Alhamdulillah. And, be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala despite all this pandemic and so many people, being taken their life by the virus. And so many people put into a very difficult situation by the virus all over the world. Almost like now more than 1 million involved and engaged, affected by the virus. So, and here we are, talking from one continent to another continent, and I believe it's still morning in your place now, approximately
Absolutely.
about 9 a.m. Yeah.
It's about nearly 10 a.m.
10
now.
a.m. Okay. And
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, this is our first day of Ramadan in UK as well in Malaysia. So we are here to discuss few things, and especially the industry that we are involved, and which is basically on education, learning, and development. Sister Saeeda, I've been reading a couple of articles regarding this pandemic and how does it affect our industry, education, learning, and development. It's really frightening, because when I read the UNESCO report about this pandemic, almost like 90% of the students throughout the world, whose country has been affected, are now is not anymore in school. The school is closed until the government really confident that there will be no more COVID-19, to be exact. So, and in UK, I believe that most of the universities have deferred their enrollment for this semester, this spring, and that affect billions of pounds sterling to the extent that it will affect the GDP of Britain for this year. Well, what do you have to say about this situation, and how do you see that the landscape of this education during this COVID-19 and after COVID-19, sister? Please.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to speak on the subject. I think that this is something, probably if you asked any of us 6 months ago that in April, will you be talking about a pandemic that will stop the whole world? None of us knew that was coming. And I think this is where the first point would probably come about, that for all the planning we do in the education sector, in public services, in so many different sectors, we never planned for something like this, that it would happen and it would bring the world to a standstill, never mind just the UK on its own. So you have schools shut, you have you have universities, you have so much that's just literally stopped in its tracks.
Yeah.
And I think that part of that is that with the education system, it's never stopped, had a breath and thought, is it and I think that that's my first point, that the education system has not really had any major reform in terms of questioning truly. I'm not talking about little bits of changes and things that have happened over the years, such as ways of teaching or assessment, but it's never really had a time to stop, breathe and think that, is this education sector, is it fit for purpose? Does it meet the needs of industries and economies and people in present day or future, for the future? The other thing I would say is that the pandemic has brought up the flaws that exist within the education system, but also in terms of our ability to respond to it for minimal disruption. And this is something that it affects whether you're a developed country or a developing country, whether you have a high GDP or a low GDP. All of us are in this. Probably say that the disruption and the effect it's had on the GDP of developed countries is probably far greater, and it will be far greater over the next number of years. So really, the education system really has an opportunity now, despite what's happened, because we can either look at this with very bleak eyes that everything is over and we've lost X amount of money or X amount of years. We can actually have an opportunity to critically appraise and say that, is this education system or this sector or industry, as some may see it, is it fit for purpose? I've argued for many years that it is not. And I believe that it's not because it's been working in silos. So you have the nurseries or the kindergarten, then you've got the primary schools, then you've got the high schools, then you've got the colleges and universities. Mm-hmm. Very rarely have people from one department to another of a university talked well to each other, never mind other institutions. They've not spoken to industry well. They've not spoken to the health sector well to look at, is this education system causing stress, enough stress that it affects the mental health and the well-being of the students? Are we really doing something which is adding value to the skills and the capabilities of an individual, or are we taking away things from them and we're putting them into a mindset that performs in a closed way? So I think that there's some critical questions that we have the opportunity to ask. We also have the opportunity to ask that, are we preparing people for the 21st or the 22nd century? Are we preparing people for skills and for what is needed for the future? Because in order to get to the next stage, we have to have the students of today building the skills and the knowledge and the platforms for the future. And within that, bringing in issues that is the education system, creating people whose character is about compassion, about altruism, about caring for not just themselves and economic development and growth, but also around social development, environmental consciousness, and so forth. So what we have is an education system that is integrated, integrated, can't speak English properly today, with the needs of economy, with the needs of a global marketplace and a global village, as well as the needs of the local industry. And so I think that the place we're at this moment, despite the negatives of the pandemic, it actually gives us opportunities to say, are we doing this right? And actually, in my experience and the work I've been doing for over 20 years in joining up education with economic development, with well-being, with that broader holistic ecosystem of growth for a country, we have some phenomenal opportunities through the use of technology, through the use of the digital space, to stop the disruption almost immediately. We have got, for example, ways that we can work that no child, it does not matter whether there's 5 children in a village somewhere in the world, or whether it is a large university or school, we can actually offer programs that will prepare students for the future. But this is based on actual research that shows and that we've looked at from a point of view of whether the education system is working or not, and then developing holistic ecosystems and solutions that fulfill the multiple needs of the future economy.
Okay, sister, allow me to stop you here. Just for the acknowledgement of our followers in FB, Facebook, Sister Saeeda had been working with so many organizations throughout the world, be it in education, be it in the development of socioeconomics, be it in the halal, I think in the halal industry. So she had been working and been receiving a lot of award from the government of UK, and working a number of governments from different continents, an advisor for education and socio-economic development. So she is I couldn't compare with that many individuals who are involved in education and also concerned about the development of the community and socio-economics. So we will inshallah highlight from time to time with Sister Saeeda during this conversation. Okay, taking from the first few points that you have been put forward, in the discussion, you were talking about education will not stop. It will find its way, again back to the community, despite of the millions and billions of dollars and cents lost in these disruptions. It will find its way back, and then and this is the very right time for us to question whether this system education of us that we have been following, I think for the past decades, of learning, is it in for the purpose of the industries, of the people, of the and so many socio-economic that we are in, whether this education system produce a person who are compassionate enough to look into all the sectors, and whether they have the altruism, and whether they are engaged with the social development. All in all, basically, you are talking about whether the education fit the purpose of producing the balanced people, for the economy as well as for the development of humans and the societies. Well, talking about that, that is about questioning the systems. But I'm concerned about what will be the impact after this. The global village after this might be a few months of pandemic, might be up until the end of the year. What should institutions like the universities and the colleges and even the corporate sectors, where most of their people are now working from home, how do they continue the agenda of learning and development, as well as the way questioning whether silos that is talking to each other? I want to know what will be the best mechanism for the learning to continue and take place.
So I think, first of all, I would say that if we want an education system that creates people that are socially conscious, environmentally conscious, there's also another component to this, and this is about their relevance, the relevance of their skills to industry. If you look at, for example, industry, often you hear reports saying, employers saying, the students are leaving university or graduates are leaving universities or colleges without the right type of skills and attitude to work. So if that's the case, where the students are not prepared for their working life, I don't think that this pandemic has caused that. That's been the argument for decades. That students or graduates, school leavers, they're ill prepared for the working environment. So that's one thing. The second thing is the nature of work is changing tremendously. It is no longer about having a job, it's about economic participation. Economic participation could be that you are an entrepreneur, you are a social entrepreneur, you are freelancing and doing your work from home, you are working for somebody else. There's so many methods of economic participation, and then there's so many methods of how you actually fulfill that. You could be working from home or in an office or somewhere else in a co-working space. The world has changed tremendously.
Yes.
Now, bringing that back to some of the points that you're raising, yes, there's going to be a disruption to the way things were before, and that isn't actually going to change. That will not change, because that disruption now has been big enough and significant enough that stopped us all in our tracks. The other thing about this is that if you look at the education system, it's worked wonderfully well for things that are long planned. You've got you plan, you structure, you organize. This emergency situation, this pandemic, it's shown us how weak our systems are to be able to respond to this with a level of cool-headedness. So the students, if the academics themselves are not able to do it, if industry hasn't been able to have a way forward, if governments, then students haven't either, because they're going through the same system and they're facing the same bottlenecks and the skills shortage that actually the instructors are facing. So one of the biggest areas will be around creative thinking, flexible thinking, be able to plan in emergency. And this will probably be something that will be applied across universities, across disciplines, because this pandemic has shown us that nobody has been spared from these circumstances.
Okay, that is interesting that you brought it a few qualities, to overcome the disruption, to be cool-headed, yeah, and among others that you are talking about being able to be flexible, agile, and innovative and creative in thinkings. So okay. Is that any other skill set that people may need, to ensure survival after this pandemic? Is there any other? To be exact, specifically, what will be the skill sets that students that might be industrialists or employees need, to build upon themselves, to make sure that they are still marketable in the job market, that they are still sought after by the employer. Please, sister.
In terms of what you're asking, this is something yourself and I have talked about over a number of years that we've known each other. And I believe that the graduates or the job seekers in many ways, but also the current employees of many workplaces, we will need a new set of skills and capabilities. Things that haven't been applied before, we would need to look at applying those types of skills. One of them is the ability to make quick decisions and beyond our silo sector or beyond our particular discipline. So you now will have people like engineers talking to the hospitals and the healthcare workers to try and find ways that they can maybe create isolation rooms that are fit for purpose for the healthcare sector. Maybe that engineer only talked to builders before, or people within the construction and the engineering field. But in order to make things happen quickly, we would have to have cross teams working together. There's design-led thinking and leadership qualities that will probably be needed, and that we're already working with some of the world's experts, professors, as well as individuals who are involved in this space, working with governments to make solutions happen that are then very, very specific. The other areas, I think, are actually not individual, but an overhaul of systems within companies, within government agencies, with how they do things and how fast they do things, and how to create systems that can enable quick decisions that are still rooted in quality, accountability, and so forth. So instead of having a decision or tendering process for, say, safety equipment, instead of that taking 6 months to 9 months, how do you shortcut that so it takes a week or 5 days, or so that all the quality assurance, the accountability is covered, but at the same time, if there's an urgent need, this is like a global disaster that's affected us, like. And being able to pick ourselves up and say, let's go with this and let's resolve it. But you wouldn't be able to do it. And it would, if you use the pre-COVID-19 circumstances, because you could be sat there and just to arrange a meeting might take 3 or 4 months with a decision maker, then a follow-up meeting could take you another 6 months or so. Yes. So you really need a response that is thorough, but also is able to deal with the issues in a way which is timely. Timeliness, anybody who can master at this moment in time the ability to make important decisions fast and to safeguard the interests of all the different stakeholders are going to be the leaders of the future.
Okay, that is there's a lot of things to be chewed upon. Yeah, you are talking about the quality that is holistic. Yeah, you talk about a quick decision making that is still deeply rooted within quality and integrity. And of course, when you talk about quick decision making, you were saying that pre-COVID you may take about 3 months to arrange for a meeting, and then to follow through, the decision of the meeting, it takes another 6 months. That is almost like 9 months. But now, with the limitation of movement, with the limitation of social distances, those things will not be possible anymore. And the only way now to move forward is like what you are and myself are doing now, is talking through our gadgets, and that is quite a challenge to inculcate, to induce such quality, which is quick decision. And you were also talking about not silo. That is very interesting, pretty interesting. When you talk about engineer talking to the services like hospitals, which might not happen before, because engineers is about building a building. They talk to the contractors. They're concerned about the quality of the concrete, the steels, not about the people who are using it. So this is something new, yeah. And also you are talking about design thinking, something that you never thought of, yeah. that is really interesting, and of course, something which is will be evergreen about leadership. So this is a big skill. This is big set of skill that we need to build towards the people. The question is how. And I believe that most of the country are now extending the movement of restriction. Perhaps might be at 2-3 months. Might be certain country might be up to end of year. Whereas the industry need to go on, yeah, business need to go on, country need to be governed. So what will be the best methodology to go through, for us to educate people, to continue the agenda of learning and development? What will be the best mechanism? Talking from the perspective of UK, especially now, you have just go through Brexit, something which is big, and then add up with COVID-19. So how do you continue this learning agenda, sister?
So I think, first of all, part of this learning agenda will also be about unlearning some of the things, as whether it's skills or knowledge that was pre-COVID-19, because they were relevant to that time.
Yes.
What we need now is something very different. And with the use of technology and with things like blockchain, we immediately have some of the opportunities for verification or continuation that we would not have had before. The problem has been currently that this hit us all straight away without actually being able to have the full ecosystem or the route map planned out. So we had a bit of blockchain, a bit of digital technology, some education, but there wasn't a tie-up. Also, there wasn't a tie-up and a really truthfully deep enough appreciation of education and its link to industry. So I would probably turn around and say, okay, if we've got countries that are going to be affected badly by COVID-19, which many countries are, I don't think there's going to be many that are going to escape the after effects of this pandemic. I would actually turn around and say that we would start with industry and governments as a way of leading, and society as leading what is needed, starting with purpose. What is it that we need? And then for the education system to be responding to that. So after COVID-19, I can imagine we're going to need to do a lot of healing activities, so enabling people to reintegrate into society, into not having a fear of talking about talking about some of these things, even engaging with other people. So there will be training needed on how to be safe, but to be social and to cover the well-being aspects. That should actually be happening now. Also, we need to be having conversations with industries, and they need to be happening now, on what is going to be the need after COVID-19. Where is the needs going to be for their business? Is there even a need for their business anymore? Can they recreate themselves into something different? And then working to have the teams that can enable this to happen. Technology is a great enabler. If you look at this idea that we can be talking to each other through our phones, this was not possible 20 years ago.
Yes.
But even 6 months ago, because I'm not going to go further, 6 months ago or even January, if you asked people, so many people in so many parts of the world, would you prefer to have a meeting online? They'll say, no, let's try and meet face to face. So they would be stuck on doing things the way that as human beings we like to do.
Yes.
Necessity today makes us that we're all having to resort to telephone meetings or to meetings through our computers or iPads, etc. So I would actually say that we have had to force ourselves to use this medium as a way to get by in today's times. And I think that these flexibilities and the mediums of how we do this and critical conversations are going to be absolutely vital in order to move things forward and to make us gain from this virus and this pandemic. I look at it and I think, okay, it's happened. We cannot change what has happened, but how do we harness the best things out of this pandemic for a positive and a constructive future? I am part of a foundation which is called UNGSI, and as part of that, our role is to implement the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Now, I can tell you that I would gladly have traveled all over the world as part of that. But today, in order to make an impact, I will be at home in my room, talking about these issues, and I will still make the same impact. Or I could sit there and wait for 6 months' time or a year, and much damage might already be done because I'm waiting for the old way of doing things, which is actually no longer either fast enough or relevant.
Okay, pretty interesting that you were saying that we can choose, to wait for another 6 months and to continue what we human used to do face to face, or we should start now, from our comfort of house and room to continue the agenda of learning and development. So the enabler is the technology, and this is another topic that we will discuss now. How do you see, this will affect the landscape of education? What will be the role of the university? Because now, if I were to be Malaysian, and I'm a Malaysian, okay, I can choose to have an education from UK in the comfort of my room. Why should I go into the local university? So
Yes.
if I choose, to have an education from Singapore, I can have it right here from my home. And I believe the same thing, the same questions will be lingering in the mind of many students and those who need education and development throughout the world. Yeah. So what will be the role of the education institution? Yeah. Apart from questioning the purpose of their education system, what will be their role to make sure that they are still in needs? They are still in the list of the priorities of their local students. How do they make themselves unique, to the industry, and what will be the inspiring factors for the students and also for the perhaps might be the employee of an organization to choose one particular organization to have their continuous learning? What will be the unique selling point for this institution?
So first of all, I think if we bring it back to one of the points that you raised around the role of the education sector, the universities, the colleges, etc. This is actually going to be fascinating because I think that they're going to be the most affected, and dependent on how agile they are and able to give something that is relevant to a new world, they are not going to, they will struggle. Now, even up to yesterday, I was speaking to some recruiters for the education programs where we are offering, and our programs are British accredited qualifications.
Yes.
So they're full qualifications like a college or a university would provide. We have got short courses which are about developing the wider skills needed to participate in the labour market. One of the recruiters asked, but will the certificate say online education? Because there's a prejudice and there's a perception that online is poorer quality than face-to-face delivery. Actually, that prejudice will go because when when online becomes a method of survival for the world, everybody that is involved in online will know that it's not a lower form of education. It's just a means to enable people to have certain skills, number one.
Yeah.
And for that continuation to occur. Then the second thing is about, okay, so it's about passing knowledge and giving people, say, skills, so that they can actually do a particular job. So then the second part comes where are universities able to bridge that gap of what industry is needing and what the online is providing. So either the university will provide that online, the education, and if they provide education online, which some of them are already now starting with online Zoom classes, or they're providing a digital space, then the cost element of this will come into play. That if somebody is paying £14,000 a year for a degree,
Yep.
and they're doing that through a university which is now offering this online, and there's somebody else who's been offering this online for, say, £5,000 a year, that university's got to demonstrate what added value that comparable online diploma or degree has, that they should pay that university an extra £10,000 a year, for example. So I think the education sector is going to really have to move. I think that they are going to have to find a way to show the added value of continuing with their way of doing things. And actually, although it sounds critical, it's meant to be from a point of view of appraising if the education system was unable to prepare people and industry leaders for a pandemic like this. Does that then say that that system is not good enough, yet you're paying 3 times or 4 times the prices of actually bringing in others and experts who can actually give people the rounded skills and knowledge that's needed for the future, economy and society? Bringing back the point that you raised, that why would it be good for people to come to a single point of or a company? Well, we can provide the agility, the flexibility, and the innovation very fast and responsive to the needs of the individuals and the learners and the companies in a way that the education sector is unable to. They are like a big ship trying to move.
Yep. Yeah.
If they move too fast, they've got so many different systems that they could upset, and it could create chaos.
Yes.
Whereas what we are like a boat.
Yep.
A boat where they tell us we need you to go. Hello.
Yes. I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some disruption just now. So you were talking about we are being the boat. Yes.
Yes, and as a boat, if they say we need X, Y, and Z, we can pick and choose who we take with us and get there fast. So if you have a ship that has got 500 people, 1,000 people on there, to try and coordinate to get them to have all the resources to fulfill that, can you imagine how much planning and organization that would take?
Yeah. Okay. So that brought us to almost at the point of our time. It's almost like half an hour. It's very fast. But a lot of things that you have put up, and that's really mind, if I can say, mind-boggling, about this educations. Yeah. All right. So you were talking about few qualities that we need, from the education. First and foremost, we need to question whether the purpose of the education system now is able to answer the needs post COVID-19. Yeah. If what they have proved us, those education that we have gone through pre-COVID, and they failed during this COVID. So do we want to continue that systems? Yeah, and then you are talking about that system of education that we're going to talk, or that we're going to consider, is something that can produce people with compassion, with altruism, yeah, and with the concern of social development, qualities which is not being discussed before thoroughly, yeah, and they must also be quick and agile to produce the quality of this kind of employee, or for the job market, which is compassion, altruism, and concern about social development. To be able to do that, the system must be able to make quick decisions, which is not is challenging for big organizations to do that. Yeah. So and not silo, system that communicate with each other. Yeah. And then also we are talking about design thinking, and also full of the ability to be creative and innovative. So, and of course the leadership skills. So and institution must be able to produce this, and must be able to be quick enough, yeah, to change, so that they will be able to answer the need of post-COVID-19 learning and development. Yeah, and you have brought a very interesting point that not all the big organizations will be able to do that. Yeah, and there are alternatives to the education system, to the learning and development needs, whereby they are small, agile enough, and can choose, who will be with them on their small craft. Yeah, sister, that is very interesting. That is very interesting. I would suggest that post-COVID, yeah, it will be, if not like 80-20, 80% online and 20% face-to-face, or might be hybrids, but this will be the future, the new norms, education online. Are you agree with me on that?
Absolutely, and not just education online, but actually economic participation online. So if we've accepted that there's big marketplaces online at this moment in time, which are doing significant business online. If you look at some of the biggest growth businesses, they're actually the ones occupying that digital space. Then why can we not have an education system that fulfills that purpose alongside it, number one? And I think this will create substantial opportunities for entrepreneurship, especially in those areas that post COVID-19 are going to be needed. Good food to help people have, for example, nutritious, wholesome food, like the halal economy or the ethical economy, being able to work directly with farmers, or actually people can shortcut processes.
Yes.
Because if you look at what's happened, the traditional ways of being putting checks and balances in over an older system, and those checks and balances are there to make sure that everything's proper, nobody's lying, what you're saying, you're giving. But now, at this moment in time, if you relied on those systems, it would be those systems that actually kill us as the humankind. Not so the bureaucracy and the red tape becomes a hindrance rather than an enabler of quality. This is where the technology related graduates will have phenomenal opportunities. We need to attract further individuals that are coming from solutions thinking. Up till now, we've been attracting and we've been valuing those people who are able to conform to rules. How does the education system work? Do they follow process? An allowed sort of parameter of ways of thinking.
Yes.
Actually, what we need now is people who can take bird's eye view, whether they're graduates or whether they're the head of an organization, and find solutions that can get the results for us sooner rather than later. If people are finding that employers are not going to, they're finding their feet, they're lost after COVID-19 and they need time, Nothing is stopping us. We need to free our mind from a mental slavery that is about working for a corporate or as an employee. Why are we not thinking of freelance services, offering our services to 3 or 4 different types of employers, or working for ourselves in our own business? We have the ability to recreate our future. And I think that having an agile, having a dynamic, innovative company who can help join all of this together and enable whether they're government agencies or large private employers or even industries to streamline how they do things so they retain the good of what they've been doing, but they also learn to embrace with a greater sense of timeliness the future.
Yes.
I think we could actually have, we could turn COVID-19 into a positive force for the future.
Thank you, Sister Saeeda. It is a very enriching afternoon with you. It really refreshed our mind, and I hope that our followers and our friends outside there who are watching us, will be inspired. Despite with all these difficulties we're facing right now, it is basically the source of inspirers, to be somebody who can make quick decisions, who are agile enough, and also embrace the creative and innovative thinkings, to continue our life and our business post-COVID-19. And I want to take this opportunity to all our followers outside there. EPUK is basically an organization where Saeeda is the founder, and they are kind of like a bridge, to many countries and organizations outside UK to be able to get access to the education in UK. So should you have interest to do that post-COVID-19, or don't wait for post-COVID-19, you can start now. Talk to us, communicate with us. We will link you directly with EPUK, and you are in the journey of a new education post-COVID-19. Thank you, Saeeda, for the great afternoon. We look forward to have you again on board, might be in near future. And we wish you a Ramadan Mubarak with you and your family, the big family in the house. And see you again, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.